Hi, and welcome to India's #1 construction podcast, BuildMate Podcast.
Hi and welcome to the BuildMate Podcast. मैं ऋषभ अग्रवाल आपका BuildMate. I have two of my friends here today who are architects. They run Studio Greymatter and they have a collective experience of more than 15 years, but they've been in the architectural industry for 9 years now. Today we are talking about renovating and the challenges while renovating your apartments, your flats, high-rise societies, cooperative societies. क्या-क्या challenges आते हैं and what are the remedies, and we are just talking to them today. Hi Tanuj, hi Apeksha, welcome.
Hi Rishabh, thank you for the warm welcome.
Yeah, I've been waiting for you guys. You were supposed to be here last week. Where did you go?
Stuck in the rains.
And stuck in projects.
A bunch of them, right? And floating, drifting in time नहीं हो रहा है, floating in time हो रहा है
Floating
हमारे
in
साथ.
time, yeah. That's what it's become.
This is a topic which is close to me because I personally am renovating right now as well.
Right.
Oh.
Huge challenges there. One of the biggest challenges that I'm facing is the society, the RW itself. But yeah, with your experiences and as you would like to take it, whichever way we can go with it.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think there are various ways to talk about it.
Yeah,
We can talk about it from our perspective as
as an
architects and
architect,
designers.
yeah, of course, yeah.
We can talk about it from a client's perspective.
Which
Somebody
which
like
I'll
you.
carry, I think, yeah.
Yeah. And I think we can also talk about it from the contractor's perspective as to
Mm.
what, because I think all of us together make a project,
Yes.
right? At the end of the day.
Yeah.
So yeah, what would you like to start with?
I want to first start at the design phase, right?
Okay.
And why, I'll tell you. होता क्या है कि you decide that you want to renovate
Right.
because your space needs renovating. Now this has two aspects. एक तो है जिसमें आप घर में रह रहे हो and you want to renovate it while you're living there, which is a different hell.
Yeah.
and then there is a space which you have lying vacant,
Right.
and then you want to do that. You have time, perhaps. Sometimes you don't have that much time.
Right.
Live case scenario being one of my friends, he's a neighbor actually. 10 महीने हो गए हैं अभी
Wow.
स्ट्रक्चरल चेंजेस जो उन्होंने किए वो पूरे नहीं हुए हैं. आई आस्क्ड हिम व्हाई, कहता पता ही नहीं है स्ट्रक्चर में कॉलम कहाँ है, बीम कहाँ है, ये कहाँ है, वो कहाँ है.
Right.
Design phase, number one, I think it will be prudent to first get into design.
Yeah, I
we
think
agree.
we can walk you through also like how we usually start this conversation with the
Please.
clients. So two of the points that you mentioned,
Yeah.
right? One is key structure kahan hai.
Hmm.
So that's a big question mark, and clients don't know what structure is. I don't think any client I have met who knows what a column is, what a beam is. They like कि हाँ यहाँ पे ये कुछ ढांचा है.
Basic idea होता है बस.
Basic idea होता है.
Hmm.
So I think first few conversations is also about getting the client a realistic picture.
Hmm.
And I think that's very important as designers for us to do.
Yeah.
And understand what they want,
Hmm.
or rather what they need.
Hmm.
Because renovation is one thing, you start with like कि अच्छा हमें पर्दे बदलने हैं.
Hmm.
And by the end of it, you are cord cutting and you're
Yes.
slab cutting.
Yeah.
So I think what happens
Hmm.
is that the clients, first of all, in the first few conversations are realizing what they actually want. They might have an idea, they might have some idea of the budget,
Hmm.
but as you know very well that the industry, there is no like कि अच्छा इतने रुपए स्क्वायर फीट में इतना हो सकता है, ऐसा कोई सीधा हिसाब किताब नहीं है हमारे
नहीं
इंडस्ट्री
होता.
में. So what Apeksha and I do is we have a very detailed conversation with the clients.
Okay.
We go either it's a lunch meeting or a dinner meeting many times because most of the clients are working themselves. So we'll sit with them for 2-3 hours and we'll deep dive into what they want, why they want to do it,
Hmm.
what are they thinking about it. Most clients have seen construction somewhere or have themselves constructed some little thing. So they have an idea of construction,
Yeah.
but the construction industry itself has changed so much in the last 3 years, like post-COVID,
Yeah.
the supply chains, we all know, like,
Yeah.
the challenges we face. So we get them on par with like, acha, these are the challenges that we foresee.
Yeah.
You should be mindful of that. हम ये इसको ऐसे कर सकते हैं, ऐसे कर सकते हैं. So it's just about thrashing out possibilities
Okay.
and getting excited about the project, getting them excited about their project.
Yeah.
And we tell them that there will come a time when, you will feel like, oh my God, why did we start this?
Exactly.
That's a part of the process.
Yeah.
So I think for us, expectation setting, if I were to sum it up, is the first part
Yeah.
of our conversation with the client.
I understand
Yeah.
the civil part of things.
Right.
So I understand the breaking and construction part of it things. I understand how you want to alter the structure if you have to.
Right.
I know what the right approach is. Abhi kya hua hai ki once I got through that, I told you guys that I'm renovating, right? So once I got through that, ab uske baad, my first instinct is, what have I gotten myself into?
Absolutely. And this is when you have civil experience,
Yeah.
Rishabh. So imagine lay people who are renovating their house.
Yeah.
It's so difficult because they'll not be able to pinpoint where there is a
100%.
column, how is your slab supported.
Absolutely.
So particularly in community housing or gated communities
Yeah.
or high rises, we usually require a plan or a blueprint from the society's end,
Okay.
right? Because that helps us map what is the structure. And the whole idea of stacked housing is that there's a uniform structure on which the building is standing.
Yes.
So just because you are renovating your apartment or I am renovating it should not be a nuisance to my neighbors
Yes.
or should not, play with the structural integrity
Yes.
of a building. Right. So it's very important that whichever housing society, and it's also for clients, like when you're buying an apartment, make sure your housing society has proper plans and proper sections and proper structural drawings. Because eventually when you do renovate it, if not immediately 5 years or 10 years down the line, that is the most important document for your architect or your designer to even start the design.
This
or
we
have
should
a
even
discussion.
We should even pay attention at the time of buying an apartment.
Absolutely.
We must actually go for the plan
Absolutely.
So I think the newer apartments actually do have it, but
Yeah.
I think a lot of times clients just don't ask for it.
first.
Agar lete bhi hain, to they take like an image. So I think for all the clients listening to this,
Yeah.
please ask for an AutoCAD drawing.
Hmm.
It will really help you and it will help all the people.
जैसे
who are
प्रॉपर्टी के
further
पेपर्स होते
with.
हैं ये भी मेंटेन साथ में
ये
कर
उसी
लेंगे
में
तो
आप एक उस
Add कर लो,
फाइल का
file में।
पार्ट बना लीजिए.
Hmm.
And to add to what Apeksha said, one is the structure.
Yeah.
The second is this term we use called MEP,
Yeah.
which are basically services. तो जो वो लंबे लंबे शाफ्ट दिखते हैं हमें पूरी सोसाइटीज में रन करते हुए, सो उसके अंदर जो भी चल रहा होता है, दैट इज व्हाट कॉन्स्टिट्यूट्स MEP,
Yeah.
which is mechanical, electrical, plumbing. And especially in stacked housing, you cannot change it. क्योंकि आपके पाइपलाइंस का एक्सेस आपके नीचे वाले घर की छत पे होता है.
Yeah.
So
That's true.
that is very challenging and also people don't know. So वो डिजाइन करना शुरू करते हैं, वो बाथरूम्स बदल देते हैं बड़े मजे से.
This happened to a friend of mine in Gurgaon.
Yeah.
He said मैंने तो ध्यान कर लिया.
हाँ,
I saw the condition of the pipes outside.
right.
I got scared. Got them changed.
Yes.
Then I got so afraid that I got the wiring changed. अब I have gotten it changed for my apartment. मेरे ऊपर
Yeah.
वाले ने तो कुछ नहीं किया है. I'm facing seepage issues from that guy
Yeah.
Absolutely.
because he didn't change anything and there's a tenant there. So that guy can't be expected to change something there. So
And
that is
it's-
again a challenge there.
It's across. It's your services, which
Yeah.
are common. Issues like termite
Hmm.
or seepage. All this is common in a stacked housing. So it has to be addressed very holistically.
Hmm.
And that cannot be done in the absence of proper drawings of that building.
Hmm.
So we do realize that a lot of people want to renovate apartments in which they've been living for 20 years,
Okay.
for which proper drawings or AutoCAD drawings don't exist.
Yeah.
Okay.
They were made on those blueprints. Either they've been lost by the clients
Yeah.
or misplaced, or they weren't given those blueprints in the first place. So then we make it a practice that we go and we do a survey.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very, very important step in starting a project.
Okay.
So clients listening to this, you should actually demand a survey drawing
Hmm.
from your architect in the absence of blueprints from your society's end.
Okay. So that survey
Yeah.
drawing will give you where the column lies, where the beam lies, where everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It'll tell you the structural members of the building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
what it also does is it tells us as architects
Yes.
that, if we need to get a structural survey done,
Okay.
अगर हमें नहीं समझ आ रहा, for example, sometimes, yes, 50%, 60% of things are evident कि अच्छा ये column है, beam है, but some of them are flush with the wall, some of them are behind the cupboards.
Yes.
एंड अगर आप कुछ बड़ा करने की सोच रहे हो कि मेरे को 2 रूम मर्ज करके बड़ा करना है,
Hmm.
अगर आपको उस टाइप के चेंजेस करने हैं, which we call civil changes,
Yeah.
if you have a balcony opening and you want to enlarge that opening, I think a structural survey is it will add a lot of merit to the process.
Yeah.
It will also help you get approvals from your own RWA, because nowadays RWAs also have started asking for those drawings. So I think key steps to begin a project or begin a design phase, just to summarize, is to get a structural drawing in place, get an MEP survey in place, get a measured drawing in place, and that's when you know कि अच्छा क्या है. उसके बाद शुरू
Design
होता
phase
है
शुरू
क्या
होता
होना चाहिए.
Because clients come to us with requirements like खुला घर चाहिए, हमारा बड़े कमरे चाहिए,
Yes.
airiness होनी चाहिए, ventilation होनी चाहिए. And see, I mean, yes, as architects, we like to provide whatever our clients want, but we are also not magicians. We are constrained within a building
Yes.
envelope.
Of course.
एंड हम तो दीवार हटा देंगे, बट आपके ऊपर वालों और नीचे वालों पे क्या इम्पैक्ट आ रहा है, राइट? सो इन अ स्टैक्ड हाउसिंग यू हैव टू बी वेरी केयरफुल in your planning, in getting your documentation right, in even selecting the property in the first place.
बट अपेक्षा अभी क्या हो रहा है ना कि 80-90% लोग ना वो फॉर्चुनेटली एंड अनफॉर्चुनेटली, गलती किसी की भी नहीं है, बट वो हमारे जो कॉन्ट्रैक्टर होता है ना, जिसको बेचारे को उस एरिया की नॉलेज है,
Right.
उसको पता है कि ये वाली बिल्डिंग से स्ट्रक्चर ऐसे हैं, उतनी नॉलेज उसको है क्योंकि वो उस एरिया में काम कर रहा है. दैट इज प्रॉब्ली द रीजन ही इज बीइंग हायर्ड नाउ. वो क्या करता है,
टक टक टक
सर कॉलम नहीं है इसमें, एंड उसकी भी गलती नहीं है, शायद है, बट वो वी आर रिलाइंग अ लॉट ऑन दैट पर्सन, एंड आई थिंक देयर इज even though he might do a great job with the building and everything, but there can be circumstances where he might be wrong, and then the failure would just be
absolutely. So
much too.
I think that's where we come in, because I think one of the things clients are hiring us is, of course, we will make a beautiful project, like that goes without saying, but design is so much more than that. Design is not necessarily just aesthetic. So jitna, and if you look at the budget of renovation, like 50% or 60% of the budget is what you actually see.
Yeah.
40% of the budget goes into things you don't see.
Absolutely.
So what Apeksha was talking about, termite treatment, pest control, reinforcing columns, beams, getting the wiring changed, getting the plumbing changed, waterproofing. ये आपने कभी देखी नहीं है. It's something you will experience जब आपको रेनोवेशन के 10 साल तक कोई लाइट पंखा कहीं पे स्पार्किंग नहीं होगी. So that's an experience you get.
That is actually what is not giving you the pain later.
Yeah.
It is avoiding that entire pain.
Absolutely.
When contractors say कि knock knock क्या है, and मतलब मैंने ये बिल्डिंग बनाई है and I'll make the next building also same ही तो है.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. Like, when we were young, we used to be told that, see, everybody has a face. I'm going to use a metaphor here.
Okay.
Everybody has a face. Everybody has 2 eyes, एक नाक, a set of lips, a set of ears.
Yeah.
Right? But all of us look different.
Yeah.
Right? That's exactly how a building is.
Okay.
It might look, you have the same components. You have walls, you have a floor, you have a slab, and you have the overall structure.
Okay.
And some hard finishes, right? But हर building अलग क्यों दिखती है अंदर से और बाहर से भी, for that matter.
Okay.
That's because what is the relationship between these features is what decides how it is, right? And a contractor may say कि अच्छा यहाँ भी दीवार है, यहाँ भी फ्लोर है, वहाँ भी दीवार है, वहाँ भी फ्लोर है, तो जो मैं यहाँ कर रहा हूँ मैं वहाँ भी कर सकता हूँ. But the relationship between the divar and the floor and the chat is different here and different here. And that is where the crux lies. That is where you need an architect. Because an architect's education is that. To define those relationships, to understand relationships that already exist in a building. And to then give you a best possible solution that ties those building relationships to your lifestyle and to your requirements.
Yeah.
So,
what about whims and fancies? Now, अभी घर रेनोवेट कर रहे हैं, राइट? मुझे एक अपनी स्पेस चाहिए. I want a place where I can exercise. I want a workstation. I want this, I want that. I want everything. I may not need it. Do you think practicality dies when it comes to people want beauty over practicality sometimes? Or it's just a FOMO ki wo nahi, I don't want to have that FOMO, like.
See.
Yeah, go for it. Anyone.
Okay. When somebody building anything or creating anything, particularly in construction, is a huge undertaking, right? And I don't think it's unfair for a client to have some whims and fantasies. You work your entire life.
Absolutely.
And you work really hard to be able to afford the luxury of actually constructing something for yourself.
मतलब आप करवाई क्यों रहे हो अगर आप अपनी whims and fancies को fulfill नहीं कर सकते?
Okay, good way to put it. Yeah, of course.
And there I would say कि जब आप construction करवा रहे हो, you can be a little intelligent about it. So one is whims and fancies and the other is hardcore function. How we marry the two is we give you fungible spaces
Yeah.
or multi-purpose spaces. So suppose you want to have a gym come meditation space, but it should also be able to convert into your workspace, because the level of silence required in the former and the latter is very similar.
Yeah.
So and the kind of ventilation and
Merging
daylighting you
synergies.
want,
Yeah.
it's very synergetic,
Yeah.
as you said. So
Yeah.
we can actually combine these two spaces.
Yeah.
And particularly when you're living in cities like Delhi, Bombay, Calcutta, Chennai, right? Tier 1 cities, where space is a constraint for
Absolutely.
everybody, fungibility really is a great tool to address both the function and the whims and fancies.
So what happened was while I am renovating my own home, the guy I hired कहता भाई आप एक काम करिए आप 3D बनवा लीजिए पहले, get a hang of what you need, and that will give you a better idea of how the apartment is going to eventually look, and we can manage your furniture like that, we can manage the inner aesthetics like that, you'll have door windows idea लग जाएगा, light कितनी आएगी, more or less it gives you that picture, right? I'm like, great, okay, that works for me. Since I was involved in the civil part of things, it took me 3 months while I was involved there. Now the entire civil work, whatever little bit of it happened according to the 3Ds.
Right.
Right. और अब क्या हो रहा है कि जब execution का part आ रहा है, and now we are moving towards laying of stone, selecting that stone, getting into the tile work, getting into the aesthetics part of it. My mom is coming, my wife is coming, and they're telling me रुक जा, हमने देखना है इस घर में,
Primary users of the space.
Right.
हमने इस घर में रहना है,
Right.
and I don't want you to screw it up.
Yeah.
I think I was not screwing up for 3 months. Where were you guys? So, do you guys face this a lot, like in terms of families and?
I think we've learned.
Yes.
We've learned, and one of the the first few meetings, one
Yeah.
of the things we do is
Get everybody in.
get everybody in place. The meeting is with the family usually. Then of course, then you have some people who are very busy.
Yeah.
Like one of our clients actually is a doctor, and she is like so busy that she is only able to take out a few hours over the weekend.
Yeah.
But what we insisted on is that one of the
Yeah.
couple becomes the person who will be day in and day out.
Yeah.
So that's the single point of contact we like to say. So his job is कि वो अपने पूरी family से he gets a okay on everything
I know what you mean.
and conveys it to us. But the design presentations happen with the entire family.
Okay.
So that's the same process we follow. This is very important in residential architecture
Okay.
because you cannot discount anyone's aspirations.
Absolutely.
Even your children who might be like 8 or 10 and you would be like कि you know एक ज़माना होता था जब हम 8-10 साल के होते थे और हमें जो दिया जाता था हम चुपचाप वो कर लेते थे. That ज़माना has gone.
Yeah.
So your children have access, your children have aspirations, your children have ideas.
Yeah.
And it's very exciting, I mean, even for us as designers to see what they are coming up with. So we were actually given the color scheme of the rooms by the children in this particular project.
Wow.
And we tried our best to be true to it.
Awesome.
So things like that. So I think for us, we have learned that this is bound to happen. We tell it to the clients again for the very first meeting कि we would like everyone to okay the design. And we also tell them that there will be a 10 to 15% scope of change once we start hitting the site.
Okay.
A lot of change actually happens because site reveals things. जब आप तोड़ना फोड़ना शुरू करते हो तो बड़ी सारी चीजें आती है जो आपको पता नहीं होती पहले से. So you have to account that.
Yeah.
And what we do at our end is we keep telling the client the impact of those changes.
Okay.
It has a monetary impact. It has a timeline impact. And those are the two things which impact the client the most.
Yeah.
तो आई थिंक आवर अटेम्प्ट इज कि आप ऑनेस्ट कॉन्वर्सेशन करते रहो क्लाइंट्स के साथ.
Okay.
आप उनको बताते रहो क्योंकि उनको शायद नहीं पता चलेगा. वो आके बोलेंगे कि अच्छा ये वाला मार्बल यार सही नहीं लग रहा, अब हमने लगाया. लाइट का डिफरेंस पड़ जाता है.
Yeah.
आप स्टोन लॉट सेलेक्ट करते हो, वहाँ पे नेचुरल लाइट होती है या वाइट लाइट होती है. फिर आप जाके उसको बाथरूम में लगाते हो, वहाँ पे येलो लाइट होती है. वो सफ़ेद पत्थर थोड़ा सा पीला लगने लग जाता है. पीला पत्थर starts looking weird sometimes. So lot of factors play into it.
Absolutely.
So I don't think we will ever be like or we will encourage कि जो हो गया वो हो गया and you know चाहे आप 3D बनवा लो चाहे कुछ भी बनवा
पत्थर
लो.
लेते हुए मैंने किया था ऐसा.
Oh,
White light. ऐसे इसको बंद कर दो.
हाँ.
वो कहता सर मैं बुक मार्क करके दिखा देता हूँ.
Right.
करना बुक मैच बाद में करना.
हाँ.
उठाओ बाहर रखो natural
Daylight.
light.
Right.
So I want to see this in different lights because
Yeah.
the stone that he put in front of me looked different and the same stone when it was on a vertical thing जो वो लगा होता है
Absolutely.
stand पे लगा है तो वो different लग रहा है
Absolutely.
because the light has to play a part.
So for especially for women, they're very used to it. When they buy saris, especially mehengi
Yes.
saris, they see it in all kinds of lights.
Any expensive fabric,
Yeah.
sari, we are very used to doing it.
Oh.
तो हम अगर रिटेल स्टोर भी बनाते हैं उसमें अगर कोई विंडो है सो इन रिटेल स्टोर्स फॉर एग्जांपल नेचुरल लाइट डजंट वर्क टू योर एडवांटेज
Okay.
because natural light will light the garments in a certain way
Yes.
which is not necessarily
So you need
flattering.
those.
So you need spotlights
Yeah.
और फेडिंग के भी बड़े इश्यूज आते हैं रिटेल स्टोर्स
Sun tends to fade your clothes.
Yeah.
सो इट्स यूजुअली आप रिटेल स्टोर्स में देखेंगे लाइट बहुत ज्यादा नहीं होती है नेचुरल लाइट
Yeah.
what we do is we ensure there is some pocket where there is natural light because we know that once the client starts coming in they will be like अच्छा हम ये कुर्ता वहां ले जाके देखना चाहते हैं वहां कैसे दिखेगा
Yeah.
क्योंकि आप जब घूम रहे हो इधर उधर जा रहे हो natural light is what you will see the garment in.
Yeah.
Photos अगर आप खिंचवा रहे हो everybody is very photo conscious so garment should look good in the photographs.
Okay.
So these are things you need to be mindful of. So it's the same principle
Yeah.
when you're selecting tiles, when you're selecting colors. Colors look very different. आप कलर ना एक बोर्ड पे बनवाओगे और उसको ऐसे देखोगे नीचे करके. Then you realize ये तो वॉल पे आ रहा है तो इस पे तो लाइट ही अलग तरीके से पड़ेगी.
Yes.
So we have a huge part of our sort of design process which happens once the construction starts is sampling. We make swatches at site.
Yeah.
We will put things at the site. So we will get the clients and get them to see. So depending on also scale is a big factor,
Yeah.
right? अगर आप एक बाथरूम बनवाना चाह रहे हो so it's much easier to handle. But अगर आप पूरा घर renovate करवा रहे हो so you should deep dive into these things and give it the time that it needs so that you
all
make the right
elements of the
decision.
house in a different way. Right?
Yes, and all the people.
And the people. Yes.
Yeah, and like to tie into what he's saying, this is what the design process is.
Yeah.
You know, you said ki now earlier I was doing the civil, now my wife and mother are taking
Exactly,
charge
yeah.
because you must be at the interior stage, right? So we try कि आपका जब civil का काम हो रहा है, आपका architecture का काम हो रहा है और जब आप interior कर रहे हो, it should be all thought out together.
Yeah.
Because when you're cutting rooms during your civil work,
Yeah.
right? Or say suppose you want to make a gym in one area and you want to have a living room in one area.
Okay.
Now the structural strength that you require for the gym, because there'll be
Is
a lot of
higher.
vibration,
Yes.
is very different from that of a
Yes.
living room.
Yes.
So you can't discount planning कि ओ जब इंटीरियर आएगा अभी तो मैं रूम कटवा देता हूँ
बाद में
जब
देखूंगा।
इंटीरियर आएगा बाद में देखूंगा.
Yeah.
So it's very important when we say, so in our community, like in the design community, there's a saying that you think inside out and outside in
Okay.
whenever you're thinking of a building.
Yeah.
Right, so which basically means ki you are looking at it from all angles, from a functional perspective, from a spatial perspective, from a structural perspective.
Nice.
And it's not a linear process.
Yeah.
It all happens together for a really good building to come
Nice.
about.
For it all to tie together and
Yeah.
just form a good
Absolutely.
wholesome space.
Yeah. Because you've already pre-thought, okay, this is the function of this room, this is what it requires technically, and this is what it requires aesthetically.
I know what you mean.
Right? And
Yeah.
that is what a cohesive project planning is.
Okay.
And that really makes or breaks the experience of a well-executed project.
I know what you mean.
So,
For a person like me,
yeah.
I see only 6 colors. I should tell you a fact about myself.
Okay.
Red, blue, green, yellow, white and black.
Okay.
उसके अलावा मुझे कलर समझ में नहीं आते. So
Okay.
I'm color impaired. That's it.
Right.
Now when it comes to designing and everything, I was like, this looks nice. Right? But the stress comes from a point when my wife spots something on Pinterest and then she finds something on Instagram Reels.
Yeah.
And then she sends it in a group that we've created for the renovation of the house. I'm like, where did this come from now?
Yeah.
The change is not something that I'm comfortable with. And I'm like, yaar, abhi mat karo yaar, ye sab ab nahi chalega, right? But I tried to suppress it, but eventually I realized this is not going to work. Pinterest and Instagram Reels. How much of a hell benders are they? Or are they actually helpful today with the client and you guys working together?
That's a good question. So, I think that it has its, like any tool,
Yeah.
right? It has its pros and cons. And I'll dive into the pros first.
Okay.
So the pros of social media is the kind of awareness it has created.
Okay.
And in terms of visualization of a design. So earlier, say even 15 years ago, if you would go to a client, right, they would have to trust you. Okay, I have a vision. I am hiring an architect and a designer,
Okay.
and they'll make my vision come to life.
Okay.
But there is a period of incubation, which is very uncomfortable,
Yeah.
right? Till you show them a visual that this is how it's going to be, whether it's a 3D, whether it's a technical drawing. Most clients don't understand technical drawings.
Yeah.
So what social media has done is that it bombards you with so many images and so many available aesthetics
Yeah.
that at least that basic priming of a client is already done.
Yeah.
I like this and I don't like
That
this.
vision opens up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the pro. But the con is when clients say that, they come to you with an image कि मुझे exactly ये image चाहिए मेरे घर में.
Yeah.
Right. Now you're showing me the image of a tropical house and you want it in a high-rise apartment on the 12th floor.
Yeah.
It's very different,
I know
right?
what you mean, yeah.
So that cut and paste cannot happen, and that is the con. That having that expectation. Yes, we can understand, dissect that image. That what is it that you're liking, or what is it that's attracting you and makes you feel comfortable, inviting, right? But at the same time, I think some agency needs to be given to the designer and the architect
Yeah.
to choose what fits in best with your client's lifestyle, needs, future requirements.
Yeah.
And that is where our role becomes important. But a lot of times we don't get that agency because people are tied down to an image.
A client of mine, he saw an Instagram reel. So there was a hut-like structure. I don't know if you've seen those reels. There's a window aligned with the
Right.
roof, which
yeah.
opens up into a balcony.
Amsterdam houses.
Right?
Vienna.
It's
think,
all over
It's all
Europe.
over
It's a
Europe.
German product apparently.
Yes, yeah.
And he's like, "Can you do this for me?" I'm like, "Where?" 3G+4 building. Where do you want this? I'll do it. I know I can't. I'll do it. Tell me where.
Yes.
And then it took a few days for him to, and then the ego was such. He's like, "मैं छत पे बना दूंगा." I said, "Don't do that. What are you going to use it for?
Yeah,
it seems appealing, but is it helpful?
Yeah.
Does it actually work for you? Is it actually solving a purpose?
Yeah.
Why do you want to do this? We'll import it. But why do you want to do this?" Just because
Absolutely.
it looked nice in a reel to him, and it says,
Interesting.
this is
So that is
very
the con.
interesting.
The aesthetic becomes primary.
Yeah.
Like, or you
Yeah.
know. But having said that, I do feel clients are so much more well informed these days about
yes.
their requirements
Now they do.
because they are well traveled. There is
Absolutely.
social media. They also discuss it because like I said, construction is such a cost and time intensive exercise, effort intensive exercise. Ki everybody does their homework, talking to people, talking to friends, colleagues who've done construction.
Coming to that,
Yeah.
architects are called influencers. In the construction material space and in other product spaces. Architects, designers, civil engineers, even PMCs, they're all called influencers, right?
Right.
But there are other influencers also in the families, right?
Right.
Friends, you mentioned. Connects, you mentioned. My mom went to a friend's house and now she's saying ki chat pe kamra bana, include the CD inside the kamra, give me a huge window outside. I want to have a good view. I'm like, Mama, सामने building है. What view? Sometimes influence is a challenge.
Yeah.
I think it's unavoidable, Rishabh.
4 महीना हो गया structure बने. Now I am going for a change.
No, absolutely. But I'm saying that the social media, the influencing part of like that friends, family play, it's unavoidable. So I think what has helped us in those kinds of times.
There's the early orientations.
ओरिएंटेशन करते रहो. अगर उनको कुछ अच्छा लगता है, जैसे आपने बोला कि हम बना देंगे, बट आपको क्यों चाहिए? So many a times what happens is clients like something, or even like, this is the nature of like, I think human nature, that when you like something, you start talking about वो कैसे होगा.
Yes.
But you don't step back and say or ask yourself कि वो क्यों करना है. And we ask the why. Ways like कि आप हमें ये बता रहे हो कि हमें ये ऐसे चाहिए तो आप ऐसे कर दो. मैंने कहा उसी के लिए तो आपने हमें हायर किया है ना. We are actually the people who will solve the why, the how for you. But if you tell us what you want, what do you like about it? So, for example, to build on your example, your mother wants perhaps a lot more light,
She does.
right? So
Yeah.
that's solvable without doing what she wants to do.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a better light fixture that you can build. Maybe there's a skylight that can be built
Yeah.
into the room. Maybe the window can be oriented differently. Maybe a different type of glass can be used.
Right.
So there are many ways of achieving the why.
Hmm.
So what we do is we understand the why. अगर आपको ट्रॉपिकल घर चाहिए, क्यों चाहिए? आपको पौधे अच्छे लग रहे हैं जो इस इमेज में है, आपको लकड़ी अच्छी लग रही है, आपको टेक्सचर अच्छा लग रहा है दीवार का. हम एक चीज उससे मतलब you really dissect the
Absolutely,
image.
yes.
Once you understand the why, you talk about how. Then you say कि अच्छा ये एक ऑप्शन है, ये दूसरा ऑप्शन है, ये तीसरा ऑप्शन है. और जब क्लाइंट्स को ये समझ आने लगता है ना कि अच्छा अगर मैं इनको ये बताऊंगा मुझे ये चाहिए, तो ये उसके लिए 10 तरीके से बताना और सोचना शुरू करेंगे.
Okay.
The trust starts building.
I know
And
what
they
you mean.
eventually start talking about what they want instead of how they want it done.
Okay.
We've actually seen this shift in dialogue with so many clients,
So many clients.
who come with very set mindsets. But the moment you start asking them the why and how it connects, and it's a slow dialogue,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it's a very
100%.
fruitful dialogue.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times when we encounter issues at site, ki, okay, we've solidified the concept and the design and this is how it's going to be. But when you hit site, there are some issues that crop up which make you change that design.
Hmm.
Then the conversation that you have with the client is very directed towards achieving the motive that they started out with.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because the motive is now clear in their head.
I've noticed
Yeah.
as a home builder or a renovator, as an homeowner, मेरा भी वही end goal है. As an architect, आपका भी वही end
Yeah.
goal है. मेरे civil contractor का भी वही end goal है. हो सकता है कि इंटीरियर्स का भी कॉन्ट्रैक्टर है मेरा, उसका भी वही एंड गोल है. वो लकड़ी वाले का भी, कारपेंटर का भी एंड गोल वही है कि घर बन जाए, टाइम पे बन जाए, अच्छा बन जाए, एंड आई गेट प्रेज फॉर इट एज अ टेक्नीशियन और एज अ वर्कर और एज somebody who's doing this. But the approaches are very different. There is friction.
Yeah.
Friction and disagreement as a challenge. Your experience and your take.
Right. This is interesting. So I think let's put it in the context of constructing in a high rise.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, the challenges with the high rise are plenty. So we'll first discuss the challenges that we face as, say, ground up from a contractor or a labor perspective.
Okay.
Right. So first, there is you have very limited timings of working.
Yes.
Right. You can only start at 10 a.m.
Hmm.
Right. And you have to give a 2 to 4 p.m. break
Hmm.
in most apartment buildings
Absolutely,
where no
yes.
noisy work can happen.
Hmm.
And initially in a project, if you are renovating or retrofitting the entire apartment,
Yeah.
there is a lot of noise work.
And Sundays you can't work.
Sundays you
you
cannot
can't
work, right? Also, the whole process, the labor needs to come with a certain ID. So the labor they might arrive at 9 o'clock, but they're only given access to site at 10.
Gate pass नहीं मिलेगा.
Gate pass नहीं मिलेगा, बिल्कुल. So obviously, now एक लेबर की दिहाड़ी होती है 8 घंटा, right? वो मुश्किल से 6 घंटा काम कर पाता है. तो this is a big challenge for the contractor.
Now that friction comes in with the RWA.
Absolutely.
And the homeowner.
And
ये
the
क्या है?
homeowner, because homeowners like, my friend built an independent house in 5 months flat,
Yeah.
right? And you are taking 8 months to do it.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, because your typology is different.
Absolutely.
Your rules and protocols that need to be followed are different.
Yeah.
Even simple things like loading and unloading of material and taking it up to the level on which you're building it, right? In a high rise, it's a very time and cost intensive process.
Sometimes there are freight lifts, sometimes there are not.
Sometimes there are not.
The
And
RWA can choose to give you access or not access to that. They have
Absolutely.
that power.
And I think they have a fixed timing for that as well.
बिल्कुल.
कि आपको इतने बजे लिफ्ट मिलेगी.
बिल्कुल.
Array, one is the lift, they don't let the material truck come in. It's only in the morning or in the evening that you can bring
And
those
that
trucks
doesn't
in.
work with the traffic hours.
And it doesn't
Doesn't
work.
work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because there is a no entry timing to
Yes.
that. The size of that truck also matters. You cannot get just any carrier. So, for example, when you are renovating a 3 BHK,
Yeah.
right, in a high-rise apartment, you will have malba or what we call detritus,
Yeah.
debris, right, of about equivalent to 8 to 10 trucks. This is like when you're entirely renovating the interior
Yeah.
of that place.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that means 10 trucks and it of a certain size. Now, if that size is not allowed in your
That makes
building
it 20
compound.
and 30 trucks.
You're doing 20 rounds,
Yeah.
right? And each round is anywhere between 2,500 rupees to 5,000 rupees, depending कि आप किस level से मलबा नीचे लेके आ रहे
Yeah,
हो.
absolutely.
The higher up it goes, the price also
Absolutely.
follows the same
Yeah.
trajectory.
Yeah.
So that's a huge challenge, and that's a kind of cost we have to build into the BOQ, which is a pain point for the client.
यार ये क्या
Client,
कहा आपने?
yeah, ये तो आप तोड़ रहे हो.
जल्दी
Why are you?
ये भी मैं दूंगा.
Exactly. So the client's perspective there.
It's true, right? आपको फ्लोर कवर करना पड़ता है. जैसे वेरी सिंपल थिंग, राइट? आपका एग्जिस्टिंग स्टोन का फ्लोर है या टाइल का फ्लोर है, आपको वो नहीं तोड़वाना, तो वो कवर करना पड़ेगा क्योंकि बाकी चीजें उस पे गिरेंगी, उसको स्क्रैच होगा. अगर स्टोन है तो जब आपका कंस्ट्रक्शन हो जाएगा तो आपको वापस से पॉलिश करवाना पड़ेगा. एंड द क्लाइंट इज लाइक, आपने फ्लोरिंग का चार्ज क्यों ऐड किया हुआ है? फ्लोर तो पहले से लगा हुआ है. सो जब वो देखते हैं, एंड द थिंग इज कि फ्रिक्शन कहाँ से आती है? फ्रिक्शन आती है जब ना आप ऐसे सरप्राइज हो जाते हो कि ओ ये तो हमने बात नहीं की थी और ये क्यों है. सो
goes back to the same.
Yeah. So I think, the more experience you have as a firm, as a designer, the more you will be able to talk about all of this in the first meeting itself.
Yeah.
And what we have realized is most clients are very open to this kind of communication.
Yes.
अगर उनको समझ आएगा, वो unreasonable नहीं है. वो ये नहीं बोलेंगे कि नहीं आपको करना, आप करके दिखाओ. जैसे उनको भी पता है यार, जादू नहीं कर सकते, मतलब वो ऊपर गिरेगा तो बचाने के लिए कुछ लगाना
As
पड़ेगा.
much as clients are setting expectations with you, it is your duty and responsibility as a
those.
professional
Yeah.
to set expectations with your clients.
Yeah.
कि आप जो
Inform
चाह रहे हो,
them. Yeah.
yes, वो कैसे possible है?
These are the right expectations.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Be realistic at least. Yeah.
Time, as you said, Rishabh, time. A lot of people in our industry do not tell the right timeline to the clients.
Why is that?
Yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of competition, right?
Yeah, I wanna hear this from him.
Yeah, please.
Why is that?
अगर मैं आपको बोलूंगा कि आपके 3 बेडरूम अपार्टमेंट को बनाने के लिए मुझे 8 महीने लगेंगे और कोई आपको कह रहा है मैं वो 5 महीने में कर दूंगा, आप किसको प्रोजेक्ट दोगे?
That's fair. I understand that.
Right. So how honest you are and how you can justify that, not because you have to justify, but because that is what is actually going to happen.
No, but it's judged wrongly, no?
Yeah.
अच्छा यार, maybe he's not competitive enough.
Yeah.
शायद इसके पास टीम नहीं होगी.
Yeah.
यार इसके पास बंदे नहीं है शायद काम करने के. 8 महीने क्यों लगेंगे? यार तनुज 3 महीने में काम होता है.
Nobody discusses कि इनकी process क्या है.
Yeah.
And does that process lead to a fruitful result? जो मुझे चाहिए वो मुझे ये लोग बना के देंगे या वो लोग बना के देंगे?
Yes.
और कितने टाइम में, जो whatever I'm dreaming of, my dream home to be,
Yeah.
right? How much time is it actually going to take versus what somebody is going to say?
That's true.
That
So yeah.
reality versus expectation connect
And then
sometimes is missing.
if you said 5 months, goes on to 8, again that friction comes in.
That is the major friction.
That's a huge friction actually.
Yeah.
कि कर क्या रहे हो ये तुम? तुम
Yeah.
तो यार.
ये तो मतलब
ऐसे
delay
होता है.
होते जा रहा है, delay होते जा रहा है. And that's not a good space for anyone.
Yeah.
Not a good space for client, not a good space for the designers. Contractor के लिए भी अच्छी space नहीं है.
Yeah.
तो हमारी कोशिश ये रहती है कि वो space आए ना.
फिर कॉन्ट्रैक्टर भी तो पंगा क्रिएट करता है ना कि सर मैं वो 5 महीने हो गए यहीं टांग रखा है आपने, मैं और कोई काम पकड़ नहीं था, लेबर को कहीं लगा दूं, सर आज मैंने मिस्त्री यहाँ भेज दिया. रोज का है.
Yeah.
But also, like as professionals, we are being paid for our time. Let's be very honest about
That's
it.
true.
So
Yes.
it's not in the architect or designer's interest to prolong your project,
Yeah,
right? They are making losses if the
Yeah.
project is getting prolonged.
that's true.
So why will they tell you a timeline that they can't follow?
if you're actually efficient enough, you'll do more projects, right?
Absolutely.
काम ज्यादा करोगे.
Yeah.
जाहिर सी बात है. This friend of mine जिसका स्ट्रक्चर ही चल रहा है, स्ट्रक्चर में कुछ किया नहीं है. वही है.
I would like to meet this friend of yours.
He's a
Maybe
such
we
a
can
sweet
help
chap.
him out in
Maybe,
some
yeah.
way.
He's a sweet chap.
Yeah.
और बेचारा वो परेशान हो चुका है. I think his wife is taking charge of things now. कहती कोई बात नहीं भैया, तबीयत मत खराब करो. It's just a house and we're living in a good house. हमें बस रेनोवेट करके मूवी तो करना है.
Right.
8 महीने हो गए स्ट्रक्चर होते हुए. अब फाइनल प्लास्टरिंग चालू हुई है 8 महीने बाद.
Okay.
I asked him what were your pain points. कहता नॉलेज ही नहीं है मुझे. So they removed the entire elevation वाली walls. There's no balcony. And now they're having doors which go from the floor to ceiling.
And
And
then they
there's no-
open into nothing.
They open into
Nothing.
nothing.
Oh my
Wow.
God. Okay.
And he says अगर पता होता तो मैं पहले balcony सोचता. But awareness तो नहीं है. They don't come from the background of construction. They don't have a huge circle of friends who are into renovating or
Absolutely.
interior designing or as an architect. They didn't have that. Architect was involved later after like 3
I
months
see.
of the work.
I see.
पहले 3 महीने कोई आर्किटेक्ट नहीं थे.
That,
तो फिर वो कुछ जो चेंजेस हो गए वो हो गए.
right.
Being a duplex, they broke the stairs because आजकल वो wooden stairs बड़ी cool लगती हैं.
Right.
Oh,
I saw that on Instagram, and we can put in lights there. It looks great. It's more airy. It allows light, natural light, to enter my other rooms because there's space in that stair. Whatever, practical reasons, and they saw things. So many questions he has, and then he saw the podcast. He's like, "Tu aaja, help karne." And I'm like, "Yeah, I derive from the knowledge of others.
yeah.
For me, my forte is very limited, and it's the niche is very small. I don't understand a lot of things about construction. But yeah, let me see." Then I went to his house. 8 महीने में आप क्या कर सकते हो एक घर के साथ? You can only dismantle it because that's what it felt like. So his challenge was that he hired the wrong people.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, how does one not fall into that problem? How can one
I
avoid
think
it?
that's a beautiful question, Rishabh, because I think number one, there's no dearth of architects these days, right?
And
There are
contractors.
so many architects. There
Yeah.
are so many contractors. There are so many vendors for everything.
Yeah.
आप वही सेम टाइल 10 लोगों से खरीद सकते हो, वही सेम पत्थर 10 लोगों से खरीद सकते हो. So I think the first thing, I'll answer this from 2-3
Sir,
perspectives.
please.
From your friend's perspective,
Yeah.
who's a client, I think it's important to meet a couple of people
Okay.
pehle and see their work.
Yeah.
See their work not only in a digital format, but अगर वो आपको अपनी साइट दिखा सकें, वो कहाँ पे कर रहे हैं, और साइट पे ही आप उनसे बात कीजिए. आर्किटेक्ट से ना उनके ऑफिस में मिलना इज नॉट एज फ्रूटफुल एज मीटिंग देम एट अ साइट दैट आइदर दे हैव कंप्लीटेड और दे आर अंडरगोइंग.
Okay.
So become a part of their process, see their aesthetic. Different architects and designers also have different aesthetic. And आप जिस material से ज़्यादा काम करते हो, जिस type की detailing ज़्यादा करते हो, of course that becomes your USP.
Yeah.
So some people work a lot with raw materials, some people work a lot of laminates and things like that. They can do magic with that, so on and so forth. So it's important to meet different people.
Yeah.
And any architect worth his salt will be able to give you a basic idea of a time and cost then and there, understanding your requirement.
Okay.
उतना तो कोई भी बता देता है कि सर मोटा मोटी मैं बता रहा हूँ 2500-3000 रुपए पर स्क्वायर फुट तक होगा, बाकी हम जब डिजाइन में घुसेंगे
Yeah.
तब होगा.
Yeah.
So once you do this window shopping, quote unquote,
Yeah.
which I think is very important, you will start first of all building a knowledge base. Because see, अगर आप आज कोई गाड़ी खरीद रहे हो, राइट, आप ऐसे इंस्टाग्राम पे एक गाड़ी देख के तो गाड़ी नहीं खरीद लोगे ना. आप उसकी फ्यूल कैपेबिलिटी, आपकी रिक्वायरमेंट, उसका हॉर्स पावर, उसकी माइलेज, लाइक यू विल सी अ लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स, उसकी आफ्टर सेल्स क्या है, एक्सेट्रा एक्सेट्रा. सो minimum budget of construction for the kind of renovation you're talking about would be upwards of 1 CR. So अगर आप 1 CR कहीं खर्च कर रहे हो, so it's just sensible to meet a few people before that.
Yeah.
So that's my advice to clients.
Yeah.
Meet a few people, meet a few contractors. From a architect's perspective, what we try to gauge when we meet clients
Okay.
is how open they are to listening. Because if they are the kind of people who are not open to listening, then perhaps we are not the right fit for them.
Yeah.
So fit is very important. We also get a sense of what their aesthetic is. And the first few meetings that I spoke about, we do that as a courtesy. And if we are not the right fit, our attempt is to actually guide them to the right fit.
Okay.
Because we have an ecosystem. We need to support each other. We support our vendors support us. And the end goal, as you said, is सब चाहते हैं कि अच्छा बने कुछ.
Exactly.
क्योंकि जो हम बनाएंगे वो 50 साल तक रहेगा. So it has a huge cost on our planet.
Yeah.
Like there's a whole sustainability angle, which is not an angle anymore. It's very real. Climate
Yes.
change is here.
Absolutely.
So we understand that at Greymatter, and we are very cognizant of the fit. So that also helps us later reduce the friction. क्योंकि अगर आप राइट बंदे या बंदी के साथ काम कर रहे हो, आपकी फ्रिक्शन ऑटोमेटिकली कम होगी, या फ्रिक्शन होगी भी तो फ्रिक्शन जैसी नहीं लगेगी.
I know what you mean.
Right? And from the perspective of the contractor, usually what starts dictating hiring of the contractor for client is कि वो क्या charge कर रहा है.
Okay.
I think yes, it is important to see that. So, but you should always ask your architect to get 2 or 3 BOQs for you.
Okay.
Now, BOQ is, again, for those of you who don't know, is bill of quantities, जिसमें आप design process complete करने के बाद एक budgeting exercise करते हो.
Okay.
उस budgeting exercise को construction शुरू करने से पहले करवाना बहुत ज़रूरी है. It may take an extra 1 or 2 weeks, but believe me, in a period of 1 year, 2 weeks will feel very inconsequential.
Yeah.
You know what Apeksha was talking about planning? I think that is where, you know, it all starts coming together. So fit आपको ढूंढना बहुत ज़रूरी है. And as you said, working with the right people. I think in our industry, most people are trying to do what they know best. So I don't think intentionally कोई किसी का project खराब करने की कोशिश कर रहा होता है. But अगर आप right जाना चाहते हो और कोई left जाना चाहता है, तो वो तो आप कहीं पहुंचोगे ही नहीं.
Better to part ways.
Yeah. That's another point I wanted to make. Have an exit clause.
Yes.
Sign a contract, have an exit clause so that if it's not the right fit, देखिए ऐसा नहीं होगा कि आप जो भी फी है वो एक बार में दोगे, ना ही कोई आपसे एक बार में मांगेगा. Even the contractor will be like कि ये stages of payment, right? Like any other project. So after every stage, you have a choice to make. That अच्छा ये समझ आ रहा है, नहीं आ रहा है. अगर नहीं आ रहा, it's always better to part ways amicably.
Now, a case, okay? How many clients? I'm not going to ask you how many clients. A client comes to you. He says, यार देखो तनुज, अपेक्षा, मुझे तो ना बहुत सिंपल सा घर बनाना है. मैं यार ज़्यादा पैसे नहीं खर्च कर सकता. बहुत तसल्ली से, very simple, very sober. I just want it done like that. That is the defining term of his renovation job. And when the work goes on, he keeps adding. तो जहाँ वो काम 10 लाख रुपए पे होना था, 25 लाख रुपए होना था, शायद 30 लाख रुपए होना था, वो 1.25 करोड़ पहुँच गया है.
Right.
And do you sit down with the client and say, sir, क्या हुआ simple को? Do you ever sit down and ask him कि शुरू में तो you pitched it so you lowballed it to us? Do you think that happens? Do you think that happens?
All the time.
Fees कम मांगो आप लोग?
All the time.
It happens. I think it's a part of our...
All the time.
All the time. Like I think 90% of the projects. And I'm I think making an understatement there. Because see, and the thing is, it's also human nature, right? Design is subjective. Your wants are subjective.
बढ़ती जाती हैं वो.
हाँ. Your needs are what you can still be objective about. Right. And like I said, if you're making a house, you might as well make the most of what you have and give it your best. So we do have this and we do face this that we have the scope of work is very well defined initially and then it keeps increasing as the project proceeds further and further. So I think and this is also something we have learned the hard way because I don't know if clients know this, but it's very hard for architects and designers to actually talk about money.
Okay.
Right? We are professionally not taught to talk about money.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. We are taught to talk about design, concept, how to make things better.
You're not taught the business aspect of the thing.
We are not.
Yeah.
So we have learned it the hard way while working, and I think as being very conscientious professionals that and keeping that transparency of dialogue that we've been talking about. We do after say, so if we have promised say 3 months of design time on a project and it's extending because the scope of work is extending, we do sit down the client and have a conversation with them that sir, this is what, or ma'am, this is what we had decided on, but we have moved further from this scope, which will require this much time at my end to incorporate and for which I would like to be remunerated at this rate.
That's fair.
Yeah, and it's a very objective conversation.
Why would anybody work for free in any case, right? So
Absolutely.
You will not charge for your time and for your expertise, right?
Absolutely.
And it's only fair to understand that.
When you're a young designer or an architect who's just starting out, you often feel that, you know, at this stage, if I tell the client, they'll run away. There's always that fear, right? Which somewhere it's happened to people and that's why that fear exists.
Yeah.
But I think it's always, you have to be responsible. As much as the architect and designer is responsible in the project, so does the client. I think clients are also very well aware about how much time they are actually taking
at
the professional's end. So,
एक difference और है इसमें. The divide also occurs if there is a divide, if at all. the divide also occurs from a standpoint where I don't understand what you do. Please samjho.
Right.
For me, I'm paying you for the time. When I'm saying me, client, right? यार 15 लाख रुपए मांग रहा है घर के यार अच्छा देते हैं and there are stages of payments it's predefined इतने slabs हो गया ये हो गया ये हो गया all these stages are defined and then this is a payment right so people are like यार क्या है यार फिर पैसे मांग रहा है यार you know what I mean
Yes.
अब घर पर जो पत्थर आ रहा है उसका तो पैसा देना है क्योंकि घर में लग रहा है
Yeah.
वो जो इंटेलिजेंस है वो tangible नहीं है तो इसीलिए वो पेन भी हो रहा है कि यार ये क्या है and
It's
it's human
hard to-
psychology not that people don't want to pay
Yeah.
I think it's a known fact. Whatever
Yeah.
you don't see, whatever's
in
intangible.
India we don't want to pay for intelligence yeah we don't want to pay
I think that's
consultants we don't want to
because-
hire consultants
That's
don't
because we
value-
are not
Yeah, we
aware
don't
of the
value
value that intelligence brings.
we don't like to perceive it beforehand we
Yeah.
don't like to acknowledge it after and we're oblivious
Yeah.
of the fact though we know कि यार जरूरत तो है
So there are two things. I think, unfortunately, India is a country that follows the crowd. Whatever my neighbor is doing, I will do. So if my neighbor has built a house, अच्छा शर्मा जी ने कर लिया तो मैं भी कर ही लूँगा.
yeah.
That is one. And the second is the idea of jugaad. Now, when does jugaad is spontaneous innovation, right? But when do you
Very,
require
very good.
jugaad?
This is amazing I'm going to use this
So jugaad,
Nice.
like I said, is spontaneous innovation. And see, jugaad is required where you have exhausted all methods of solving a problem and you're like, okay, I need to innovate right now. Right? And that's when jugaad comes into play. Sadly, as a country, and because jugaad is so glorified in our country, people think that, oh, let's start the project. जब problem आएगी तब देख लेंगे. And they don't plan. And that is to the detriment of their project, their time, their money, to everything.
Okay. Couple of things, last few things, okay? Last few volleys. Skilled labor.
Very hard to find.
How big of a challenge is it?
It's a very big challenge.
Massive challenge.
What can be done for it? From your experience.
Good vocational courses in the country.
Yeah.
That
Government is doing it. There are government endeavors and there are things they're doing towards it.
I think in the recent few years, and we have to give it to the present government, that they are really pushing the Make in India agenda.
100% they are, yes.
And they are, putting in money where the word is. So it's not just they're talking about it.
I know what you mean.
So the craft revival,
Yeah.
so many new brands have come up. So I think this sort of ties into that initiative. But I think overall, people have also started valuing handwork, which was like, I think before 5-6 years, people were like, ki hame farak nahi padta.
Yeah.
Now, because people value handwork, they are willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
And, it trickles down.
Yeah.
At our end, what we try to do is, अगर हमें कोई painting करवानी है घर पे या कोई पत्थर का inlay का काम करवाना है, we try and work directly with that person instead of going through a mediator agency.
Yeah.
We try and find a spot for them to give them credit.
Okay.
Because, social media works for everyone, not only for us. It's equally important
does,
for them.
yes.
We also educate them. Ki, you have a skill. Value your skills. A lot of craftsmen actually don't know that they have a skill.
100%.
So we tell them, we encourage them. And I think this ties back for us into building that ecosystem.
Yeah.
क्योंकि आज 4 अगर अच्छे स्टोन वाले होंगे तो वो सिर्फ मेरा ही फायदा नहीं होगा, वो मेरे fellow architects का, fellow clients का फायदा होगा.
Right.
And eventually as a country, what we are building will be right there in all international magazines.
100%. Yeah.
So जैसे हम Scandinavian design की बात करते हैं, we want to talk about India modern, we want to talk about contemporary India.
Oh, yes.
So why should all our houses look like European houses, right?
There was an American idiot. I'm not going to name him. Everybody knows who that American idiot is. So he went on TV and talked about Indian architecture and how oddly designed our buildings are and how pathetically ill-equipped with technology we guys are when it comes to construction. And there was a gentleman who, again, I will not name, had a rebuttal for that idiot and went on and said कि भैया तुम्हें कुछ पता है, तुम क्या बोल रहे हो यार, भाई थम जाओ, अपनी बकवास अमेरिकन टीवी के लिए रखो. Just don't speak about a culture you don't understand. Don't speak about the country you don't understand. And please don't talk about our buildings.
Absolutely.
Come here, experience it, and then talk about it.
Absolutely.
The
Like,
world
look,
is coming now.
We are a
look at the
country of
population. Yeah,
Sorry,
exactly.
we are a country of frugal innovation, not
Yeah.
only in architecture and making buildings,
Yeah.
but take the example of UPI.
Hmm.
Nobody on the globe has been able to crack
Yeah.
online payments
And
like
now
India
we are lending
has.
that technology out.
And
We
now
are
we're
lending
selling
it
it.
out,
And
yeah.
what people find absolutely astounding is how little data
Yeah.
it takes
Yeah.
for a UPI transaction.
Yeah.
So we are a country of frugal innovation, and I think we make the best of the resources that we have.
Yeah.
Traditionally, we have been doing so.
Hmm.
And I think going forward, more and more architectural practices are also gearing towards that.
Okay.
Because yes, like Tanuj said, climate change is real, resources are limited,
Yeah.
environment is really in a mess. And as people whose work directly has an impact on it, it is our responsibility to do better.
Okay.
Which is why we
Well
don't
put.
want to talk about fresh construction. We want to talk about renovation.
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 That makes sense.
Absolutely.
Last couple. Materials. Sourcing of materials, especially pre-COVID and post-COVID now. Immediately when the restrictions were being lifted, there was, of course, a lead time that went up. It went up with lifts. It went up with kitchens, went up with anything that was prefab from a factory coming to you, wardrobes, doors, whatever. Because the raw material was, if it was imported, it was not coming. If it was even Indian made, the factories were more or less not functioning.
Right.
So the production time went up.
Absolutely.
Another thing that I keep associating with COVID is the time value of money,
Yes.
which we don't factor in. And we don't factor in inflation in our cost of construction.
Absolutely.
आज शुरू होना है काम, 8 महीने लगने हैं अगर मेरा अपार्टमेंट होने में. उस 8 महीने के अंदर if the product is valued at X today, it might be 1.2x in 6 months when I'm going to
Easy.
buy it.
It
Yeah.
will be.
We need to factor that part in, which most people don't.
We have faced this actually. So
Yeah.
the thing is, when the budget comes in, right, in February,
Yeah.
right? So we have projects that have started in previous August or September, right? And there is the BOQ is fixed by say December,
Yeah.
and you start construction, and then suddenly when the material actually starts coming to site, like midway Feb,
Yes.
March, the prices have changed,
Yeah.
and clients ask us, why am I paying 1.5x of what I was paying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think their awareness is really important because the country has changed taxation on materials,
Yeah.
and it changes every year. The amount that we are paying on construction materials.
Transportation costs change, labor costs change.
Absolutely.
Budget के बाद तो definitely
हर
काफी
चीज़ बदल गई।
variation
So many
आता है.
cesses are imposed.
Yeah.
And I think what a lot of clients end up doing is they make this mistake of buying, just to keep the cost factor intact, they'll buy a cheaper quality material. कि मेरी cost तो same होगी, but जो quality है वो मैं थोड़ा सा,
हाँ.
I'll skimp on it.
19 चल जाएगा.
वो skimping तब चल जाती है. 10 years down the line when you're inhabiting that building,
Yeah.
it comes to bite you.
And
how
not in
so?
a good way.
And and then
Not in a
the
good
amount
way,
of
yeah.
money you spend and time you spend in
Yeah, yeah.
renovating and removing that material is far more than what the
Cost of
price
correction.
increase.
Cost of correction तो बिल्कुल ही
Absolutely.
people end up selling the property eventually.
Yeah.
Cost of correction is too high.
Cost of correction, headache of correction. As you said initially, आपको रह के अगर छोटा काम है तो आप रह के ही करवाओगे. अगर आपको एक bathroom renovate
Yeah.
करना है, you won't be moving out of that
Yeah.
house. So it becomes painful. I think what is important is to give a very realistic sense of time. And I mean, we can tell certain things even right now so that people who are listening to podcasts know that, like, for example, UPVC doors and windows, like, keep a buffer of 4 weeks. Like, once you have placed
Yeah,
the
so
order,
Yeah.
4 हफ्ते
Production time.
लगेंगे उसको.
Production time, yeah.
Furniture, once you have placed the order, 6 to 8 weeks for good furniture. It is going to take that time. It should take that time.
It should take
So
that.
that, like,
Absolutely.
the
You get a
wood
quality
has-
product. Yeah.
So if it's not taking that time, मतलब कुछ घपला है, कुछ जल्दी किया हुआ है. आपको कोई अच्छा फर्नीचर नहीं दे सकता 3 हफ्ते में अगर वो रेडी बना हुआ ना हो तो. क्योंकि लकड़ी की जॉइनरी में टाइम लगता है, मेटल की वेल्डिंग में टाइम लगता है, कोटिंग्स में टाइम लगता है. And it's also like different specialized skill set people
Yeah.
doing different things and all of it coming together.
Yeah.
We
So
Call it the
yeah.
holy triad of speed, time, and cost.
Quality.
And quality.
Quality.
I mean, actually,
Time taking.
just to do basically it out of these 3, quality is given.
Yeah.
Quality is something that we take as given.
That's
right?
a given. Then these 3.
Then these
Yeah.
3. So this
I know what
holy
you mean.
triad now, if you skimp on anyone, अगर आप cost पे skimp करोगे because of speed, कि अच्छा मेरा फटाफट माल आ जाएगा, right? you're screwed.
I know what you mean.
So these three things, and like suppose if I skimp on my cost, then I might take up more time. So all these three have an impact.
I've seen on sites vendors को owners बोल रहे होते हैं या builders बोल रहे होते हैं, अरे यार भाई मुझे तो नहीं पता था ना, तेरा तो रोज का काम है, तू तो बता देता.
So
this is a daily dialogue.
अब बताते भी हो तो
But
सुनना
that's
आता है.
the thing. People don't tell, and they should.
They should. They should. I think pretty much with experience, you know कि ऐसा हो सकता है. You can pre basically you can
ये होगा
profess it
यार.
initially
I mean,
itself.
this is like day in and day out. आप आज पत्थर देखने जाओगे कोई, हमें पता है आपने आज जो पत्थर देखा, अगर आपने वो लॉट लॉक नहीं किया तो वो लॉट चेंज हो जाएगा, उसका रेशा जो है वो बदल जाएगा. Now everybody who has bought stone ever in their life knows that, be it architects, designers, or you know, any other layman, so to say. But I think education and I think the opaqueness in this industry is what really leads to a lot of things that you're talking about.
My father didn't know. जिस घर में मेरे मम्मा रह रहे हैं अभी,
हाँ.
When we renovated this 2011-12, he bought the marble from a trusted source. उन्हें पता ही नहीं था. अब जितना उसने बोला मार्बल वाले ने मंगा के दे दिया. उसने फिर बोला वो और ले आओ. अब my father doesn't know कि lot changes. So he said ले आओ. फिर तो तीसरी बार बोला ले आओ, फिर ले आओ. My house where my mom stays has 4 different colors of the same botticino.
So that happens, right?
And the guy who laid the stone did not care. उसके लिए तो पत्थर है, लगाता चला गया. वो एक रूम में 2 कलर दिखते हैं.
Yeah.
And that is the eyesore of our house. बाकी सब कुछ ठीक है.
So I think you've said something very important, the word care.
I know.
So a good architect would care.
Yeah.
That's the mark of a good designer.
We had our
They care.
And another important thing that you said is trust. See, we can try and educate as much as possible, but if the person doesn't trust us with that piece of information, that education is not going to land.
Yeah.
Trust तो एक बहुत बड़ा टॉपिक है अपने में. एक पूरा
बिल्कुल,
पॉडकास्ट है वो.
it's a full podcast in itself. And construction industry, because it is so opaque, and because yes, there are miscreants, there are people who are taking advantage
Absolutely.
of the opaqueness.
Yes.
There is hardly any trust. And without any trust, like we architects and designers are facilitators. We bring together the client, stakeholders like the client, the contractor, different vendors. And to be able to work together to create something this big, trust is very essential.
मैं एक कमेंट बताऊं जो आएगा बार-बार इस वाले एपिसोड के रील पे.
Okay.
अरे यार ये लोग क्या जानते हैं यार, ये लोग तो कमीशन खाते हैं, तुम लोग कमीशन खाना बंद कर दो यार, हम काम ठीक कर लेंगे. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it'll come from a Tom, Dick and Harry who's never done any sort of construction in his life.
Right.
Would not know jack. It'll come from him or her. What do you say to people like that? As professionals, क्योंकि अभी I know for a fact that your professional code of ethics does not allow you to advertise.
Yes.
Right? As architects, you can't basically advertise. You can have a website, but that's it, probably. You can't have banners outside. Every business can advertise themselves.
Absolutely.
Being professionals, you guys can't. Getting a comment like that.
So I would like to illustrate this with a parallel example. So you know, you go to doctors, right? And a doctors will write a certain drug for prescription. Now the salts are kind of similar, but they have a preference over one drug to the other. Because अब वो commission खा रहे हैं या उनको freebies मिल रहे हैं या whatever pharmaceutical industry is doing to ensure that their drug is selling, they're doing that. So now a good doctor, whether he's getting those freebies or not, will not matter to him. What will matter is whether that drug is going to cure,
whether if it's effective or not, right?
Yes.
So I think it works the same way for us. Like, you know, we don't care about that part of it, because, and that is not something that we essentially like, you know, dive into. But like, let's say a vendor is like, ki nahi sir, Diwali pe, you know, we have to take and all of that. But what we would like to tell clients in a situation like that is that we will only buy or suggest a product if it fits, which we trust. क्योंकि हमें पता है अगर वो 2 साल बाद, see, our profession also works on word of mouth. As you said, we are not allowed to advertise.
Absolutely.
Advertisement का actually ज़्यादा फायदा नहीं होता architects को. क्योंकि अगर आप किसी को 10-12 लाख रुपए दे रहे हो, उनको अपनी लाइफ का पार्ट बना रहे हो फॉर अ ईयर,
Yeah, which is essentially what happens.
which is essentially like we know everything about their family,
Yeah.
how they live, what are their spaces.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely right. You're only going to do that with someone who has either been recommended by someone,
Yes.
who knows. Again, same as a doctor works, same as a lawyer works.
Yeah.
Right? आप ऐसे मार्केट में रैंडमली जाके किसी के इंस्टाग्राम पेज को देख के उसको हायर
Hire
नहीं करोगे.
Yes.
That's the second step. First step is always somebody's recommendation.
Yeah.
So if somebody is recommending it, that means हमने उनका काम अच्छा किया है.
Hmm.
If we get into this whole process of earning a certain margin and therefore speccing that material, it's detrimental to our growth in the long run.
I know what you mean.
So
Especially if it
It
doesn't
all
work.
ties in. And see, no
Yeah.
client will recommend you on the front foot. जैसे अभी घर बना और अभी आपको recommend कर दिया.
Yeah.
They will inhabit that space. उसमें if they don't face any problem, then they'll tell their friends कि listen,
The experience is a part
the
of it.
experiences. How seamless was the construction process for you?
Yeah.
How well facilitated it was.
और यार तू भाई काम इनको दे दे, बिल्कुल सिर दर्द नहीं हुआ
Yeah.
मुझे मेरे घर
बिल्कुल.
आते हुए, right?
Yeah.
absolutely.
That is actually the first thing.
And we say
Exactly.
it like an architect who
Yeah.
builds a good space is going to be appreciated for life.
Yeah.
And a one who builds a bad space or an inconvenient space will be cursed for life.
Okay.
Because that's the kind of relationship you have with the client.
I mean, day in and day out, अगर कोई दरवाजा, simple thing, नया दरवाजा लगा है, उसमें आवाज आ रही है खुलते वक्त, you know that type. Every time you open that door, you will be like, क्या hinge लगा के गया है मेरा architect यार.
इसको
I
रोज
know what
हाई
you mean.
लगेगी.
I know what you mean.
Right. So
That sound will make him think of you all the time.
And not in a good light.
Yeah.
So
Do you enjoy turnkey projects? No, yes. Only design is better. ठीक है, from a distance.
with the right people, we enjoy them.
yeah,
With the right people.
I think it's important to have that fit in the turnkey project.
कि मेरा एक दोस्त है यार, और मैं गया उसके घर पे और बुलाया कि यार देखिए एक बार मेरा स्ट्रक्चर कैसा है घर का. नहीं, what he had done was he had extended into every possible direction in his house. स्ट्रक्चरल डिजाइनर तो चलो मेरे को लगता है कि शायद गोली मार लेगा अपने आप को अगर वो कोई चला गया वहां तो. और इसने मुझे बुलाया, कहता ऋषभ क्या लगता है. मैंने इसका चेहरा देखा कि ये खुद घबरा रहा है.
हाँ.
He knows there is something wrong with this. देखा यार देख, I am not an expert on structure.
Right.
मैं बस तुझे बता सकता हूँ सिविल वर्क तेरा कैसा क्या हुआ है.
Yeah, in Delhi, it's very
मैं घबरा
important.
गया and I came home and I told my mom also, मम्मा आज मैं कुछ ऐसा देख के आया हूँ जो पता नहीं क्या होएगा. Should I tell him कि he should not live in this house?
Just redirect him to an architect. I think हमारे देश में there's a belief that more covered space is more space. That I think is a belief that needs to break. क्योंकि अगर आपने सब ढक लिया है, it doesn't mean आपका हाउस बेहतर हो गया है. आपको balcony चाहिए, आपको open space चाहिए. So और हमारे जैसे शहर में जिसमें like you know you have summer, winter, spring, like you have every मौसम, you need different spaces.
Yeah.
You need well lit spaces, but you also need slightly darker spaces.
Yeah.
नहीं तो आप AC चलाते रहोगे अपने घर में. So it's important to have that variety. And again, I think we to tell people that देखो ये आपके different functions हैं, हम ना मना नहीं करते.
So
आप अगर किसी को मना करोगे ना, वो नहीं सुनेगा आपकी बात.
and it's not like we don't understand the requirement. See, we understand कि we are a country that will always have a housing shortage.
Yeah.
Right? So real estate will always be a premium buy for you. So everybody wants to cover every square inch to
Yeah.
be able to monetize that.
Yeah.
But we understand that. But what is the
Purpose.
What is the purpose? And like whatever per square inch you are covering, but if you're not able to use that space in different seasons, in different ways, then what is the point?
Yeah.
So we understand that, and like we said, and we keep coming back to this point in this podcast, ki yaar, we have to educate, we have to create awareness, and you have to have a dialogue with the client, and you have to just cross your fingers that that client is also ready to have that dialogue with you.
More covered spaces, a better space, right?
better space.
Better living it'll lead to.
And you know what's funny, Rishabh, and this is also happens in our industry also, especially अगर आप कुछ सिविल के बड़े सारे चेंजेस करवा रहे हो, लोग ना आपको जो नक्शा देंगे उसमें फर्नीचर नहीं डालेंगे.
Yes.
एंड दैट कम्स एंड बाइट्स यू लेटर बिकॉज आपने बहुत बड़ा एक बेडरूम बना लिया. येस इट्स अ बिग बेडरूम, बेड तो 6 फीट बाय 6.5 फीट का ही होगा ना. अब आप उस पर क्या करोगे? क्रिकेट खेलोगे? नहीं कर सकते कुछ. टीवी आपका 22 फीट दूर है, आप बेड पे यहाँ हो. There is no, you can't see कितना बड़ा टीवी लगा लोगे.
अरे अभी मेरे फैमिली फ्रेंड है यार, he moved into a new house. बड़ी मेहनत से और बड़ी शिद्दत से और बड़े पैशन से बनाया उन्होंने.
Right.
And he wanted to build that house since like 10-15 years I've known.
Right.
बड़े पैशन से बनाया. ये अभी पीछे मम्मा से मिले वो कहते यार भाभी एक प्रॉब्लम हो गया. मैं क्या प्रॉब्लम हुई? कहते यार बेडरूम साला इतना बड़ा बन गया, नींद नहीं आती इसमें.
Yeah.
I can't sleep in it because it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like
For
a
a
cozy
bedroom,
room.
you need a cozy, intimate space which
Yeah.
puts you.
यार इतने बड़े इतनी हाई सीलिंग्स है, हमने 13-14 फुट की सीलिंग कर ली है, इतना बड़ा कमरा है. It feels like I'm sleeping in the living room.
Living.
Absolutely.
वो cozy लग ही नहीं रहा मुझे.
So getting everything in place initially कि furniture क्या है, अगर उसमें क्या क्या हो सकता है, बड़ी जगह is not necessarily a good space. अगर उसी बेडरूम में आप एक छोटा सा वॉक इन वार्डरोब, अगर आप एक सीटिंग क्रिएट कर सकते हो, सीटिंग के साथ आप कुछ स्पेस डिवाइडर्स लगा सकते हो, आप पार्टीशनिंग कर सकते हो जो ओपनेबल हो, आप एक बालकनी का स्टेप आउट टाइप का क्रिएट कर सकते हो. बहुत सारी पॉसिबिलिटीज हैं.
Yes, absolutely.
राइट, यू जस्ट नीड टू बी टोल्ड और बी ओपन टू एक्सप्लोरिंग दैट.
One last thing.
Yeah.
I think through my experience and the time that I have seen people suffer through a lot of things while they're renovating, actually वो भूल जाते हैं कि this is a fun process.
Yeah.
What you're doing is creating and eventually a living space for yourself or for other purpose, but you're creating something. और जब वो shape ले लेता है और जब वो exist करता है ना, it's actually very rewarding and you enjoy it.
Yeah.
So that end goal should always be there कि I'm going to enjoy this space later.
Absolutely.
So no point fretting over it, no point giving stress to others and yourself about it. And you have to be open to ideas, right? कि अच्छा ठीक है नहीं हो रहा है ऐसे होगा, ये नहीं हो सकता ऐसे होगा, right?
Yeah.
So you need to be a little adaptable to new tech and technology and whatnot. Guys, thank you so much for coming. I think it's always fun when we talk.
Thank you so much for having us here, Rishabh. As much as we enjoyed having this conversation, I think our endeavor is also कि जितना fun हमने यहाँ किया, उतना हमारा design और construction process में भी हो clients के साथ.
If people have questions, I'll direct them to your email ID. And I would like to share your website and maybe some contact info so that they can reach out to you directly if they want to. This was Tanuj and Apeksha from Studio Greymatter. As you can probably understand that they're very easygoing in terms of understanding and open to ideas and understanding your issues. So if you have any questions, I think they'll be happy to answer. Please comment in the video sections, comment in the reels or the posts that we'll be sharing on social media. You can reach out to me at BuildMate Podcast. On Instagram, and you can also write to me at BuildMatePodcast at gmail.com. Thank you for listening and have a great day.